and we have a legend of West Australian footy and a real estate buff himself.
And a great friend of ours.
And a great friend of O'Brien Real Estate. John DOROTICH is on the call. John, thank you so much for joining us on O'Brien Auction TV.
Good morning, and good morning to all the listeners and the viewers. It's great to be on the show.
Well, we might start with your footy background. Carlton, South Fremantle, you had a fantastic career. How many games across those two clubs did your career span?
Well, from a games point of view, the two clubs, 283, and then I was lucky and fortunate enough to play State of Origin 6 times. So, the first one was in 1984, so at Subiaco Oval all those years ago on a Tuesday afternoon, 52,000 people. Gary Ablett playing half-forward flank, kicking 8 goals in a game that there was, I think, 44 goals kicked and a 4-point victory to WA. So that's a very vivid and great memory of mine being in that game.
Now, Dora, I said I'd get you on for one reason, mate, to talk about what's happening over in the West, but we'll come back to that in a minute. I want to know 2 things, okay? You classify yourself as one of the top 10 utility players to come out of Perth. So self-classified, no recommendation. But the other thing is, I want to know a couple of things. The hardest player you've played on and the best footballer you've seen.
Very good. Okay, so going back to the story about the top 10 utility, it was actually an article in the West Australian. I happen to have it here. No, I don't. But at the end of it all, they named 10 players, not in any particular order, but 10 allegedly great Western Australian footballers that had the flexibility to play in multiple positions. I was in there, and I suppose, Darren, the stats don't lie. In my 289 games, I kicked just shy of 600 goals, but ended up playing 40% of my career in the back line. So I put the analogy together. If I played forward for the rest of it all, I would have been a 900-plus goal kicker and been, a real legend instead of the legend on O'Brien TV.
You speak of top 10 there, John, and on a really high note, I think there's another Rioli to debut for South Fremantle, who may be the 10th Rioli to grace the club. Yeah,
and that's exactly right. And it's going to be a beautiful day over here in Perth. It's the sun's shining. We've had a lot of rain recently, but Ben Rioli, the younger brother of Dean Rioli, who played in the South Fremantle 1997 Premiership with me when I was captain, his little brother's debuting today. Their father, Sebastian, was a wonderful player from St Mary's up in the Northern Territory in the 70s, and Maurice Rioli, of course, who I had the privilege of playing with in the 80s and State of Origin when Maurice was at Richmond, and obviously come from South Fremantle. So it's going to be a big day for the Rioli family. I'm not sure that people are down. With the quarantine and the isolation. So, the good thing about it is it's going to be on television. So hopefully the family up in the NT get to watch their son, cousin, nephew, whatever it may be. But it's a great story for the Bulldogs.
Now, Dora, you've dragged out your self-portrait there. Now, Linny obviously hasn't allowed you to hang it in the house, mate. It must be out the back in the bungalow, and you've brought it in purely for this interview. Answer the question, mate. The toughest and the best you've seen, and then we'll get on to talking a bit about Perth real estate.
No worries. Well, I think, look, the toughest in my time over there, Dermot Brereton was a player that, when you look at the game, the way he played in his era to play centre-half forward, for the period he did as 187 centimetres, he was just a mad Irishman that you just didn't know what was going to happen with him. The first year that I was over in Melbourne, he smashed my nose all over my face in a night final out at Waverley in 86. And I think my head just about blew up on the way home on the Eastern Freeway to Carlton. He was just a brilliant player for somebody his size. He held no grudges. Whatever happened out in the ground, stayed out in the ground, and he gave as good as he got.
He almost did that at the Hyatt when we went to the lunch last year at the Hyatt just before the grand final. He come up and grabbed you in a bit of a headlock.
Come on, let's keep this PG, gents.
Exactly. So, and when we get on to the best player, look, it's an interesting one. Like I played a hell of a lot of my early career at South Fremantle with the great Indigenous players, and you guys would remember a fellow by the name of Stephen Michael that never came to Melbourne, nearly came to Geelong. Again, he was a 6'2", 188 centimetres. He rucked he was a star. So, I honestly think like Stephen Michael and Maurice Rioli are the two best players that I've had the privilege of playing with. But then you can look at people like Williams and that along the way. Greg Williams, for somebody that was rejected, too slow, couldn't get the ball. When he got to Carlton in 1992, when he came back from Sydney, it was a privilege to see how he went about his craft and why he was so good.
Now, Doro, we've been tracking real estate in Perth, and over the course of the last 8 to 10 weeks, we've been talking about, the transactional volume happening across the country, and we've just been noticing that Perth has gone from strength to strength. There's a lot more transactions. I think you've doubled over the course of the last 6 or 8 weeks the transactional volume. What's happening over there, mate? Is it purely related to the easing of restrictions or mining or what? What's in the water?
Yeah, well, it may be a mixture of both. I did my research, as I do, as a good analysis, and I went onto the REWA website this morning, and I think the week ending July the 12th, which is only last Sunday, so there was over 10,500 homes for sale, which was up. There's about 4,000 for rent, and obviously with the restrictions being lifted, there's a lot more opportunity. There's some really good buys in spaces and suburbs if you're looking to get into the first home market, established homes in different suburbs with prices ranging from 450 to 600,000. And it's quite interesting when you look at what the growth has been over the last 12 months in certain suburbs. And, if you've been over in Perth, the suburbs that are right on the beach, Cottesloe, City Beach, Claremont's an older established suburb, a bit like Malvern in Victoria, sort of thing. Like those have declined over the last 12 months, but there's been some very, very interesting uplift in other suburbs. River suburbs around Perth, have also picked up, that have got those beautiful views up on the hilltop over the river towards the city of Perth. So there's some good buys out there, but it appears, the vendors, as usual, obviously have a belief that their property's worth a lot more than what the buyer's prepared to pay. So there's some good bargains to be had. And I looked at this morning, my suburb that I live in, Melville, that seems to have gone up 11% over the last 12 months. So if that's accurate, wow. It's a good result for this area because it's a beautiful place.
Well, some great tips and advice there for people looking to get in the market, and also some advice there for sellers. John, thank you so much for joining us today. Some great stories and all the best moving forward, and thanks for joining us on O'Brien Auction TV.
No worries, boys. Good luck, and to Stav and to Darren and all the boys associated at O'Brien, good luck, and let's hope you have a great second half of the year. Thanks, boys.